he put everything together, and the fact that nobody has done this while it was going on or in retrospect it's not surprising, but it's a disgrace. But it's a fantastic work from Paul Arkin. It's captivating, and I was absolutely infuriated reading it. You know, after the first 150 pages, you know, you're just, and listen, it doesn't take much for me. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. Everybody knows that. But after finishing this book, I mean, it seems so simple. You know, when you're finished with it, it's like, that's so simple. You know, how did we not know that this was going on the whole time? And the simple fact is, there were very clever usages of diversions, of distractions, facilitated by the media, that kept our attention away from these things. It was a sleight of hand. But the main point is, David Murray never actually had anything other than his influence. He borrowed the money to buy Rangers, and he borrowed every last pound and pence that financed all of those years that they would, you know, they were going to have 3 separate teams, and, you know, all of those years that they bought, you know, the Laudrups and the Bronkhorsts and the, you know, for every $5 you spend, we're going to spend a tenner. Well, no, you're not. The Bank of Scotland's going to spend a tenner, because you don't have a dime or a nickel or a pound or a pence or a shilling to your name. And he got found out in the end when the boys from Lloyd's came in and knocked over his deck of cards.
You see, the old saying, G, right? If you borrow £500 or £1,000 from the bank and you can't pay it back, then you've got a problem. But if you borrow 600, 700, 800 million and you leverage yourself to that amount as David Murray did, then it's a bank that've got a problem.
Right.
And then if what I'm guessing at, or my knowledge of how the Edinburgh establishment cabal had operated, I mean, I'm not going on what the evidence that you've managed to pertain from Paul, right? But going on my limited knowledge of what I know has happened and what these people are, or who they are, and what they do and what they're capable of, that the amount of money, but basically the way I would look at it is, the people who run this country, right, the city of London, right, that is where the financial heartland of probably the planet sits. I mean, there's more banks from the United States of America with their heartland and their headquarters in the city of London than they've got in New York, yeah? So the city of London is the financial heartland of the planet. And what happened in the last 5 years, for Scotland anyway, if you look at the Scottish banks, the Bank of Scotland, the Royal Bank, they were running their own little clique. They were running their own cartel. They were running their little Edinburgh establishment club, right, for want of a lovely phrase that Paul's helped probably now be in the Oxford Dictionary in the next few years, the Edinburgh establishment, or the Edinburgh, you know, the cabal that it is, these people, yeah. They, along with Murray and whoever else it is, right, they've all colluded, and it seems to me anyway that what they have done has outraged the power block that be down in England, down in London, the city of London, because it seems to me, I remember a good brother, Henry Clarkson, in a conversation I had maybe 6 months or a year ago with him, and we were speaking about, you know, just the same things as Paul's book seems to be touching on. And the City of London police became aware of what David Murray was doing when they kicked the door in with the John Allen Boom song and the Newcastle situation, and that was over a call. And when they went in there, you know, for what they seen at Rangers, it must have opened their eyes. And like Lloyd's, when they went in and seen just what the shithole was the Bank of Scotland, and if anybody who went and took over Lloyd's Bank, the Royal Bank of Scotland, I mean, the Royal Bank of Scotland bought over ABM AMRO, a Dutch bank, who was just full of shit anyway. I mean, at the worst possible time, at the highest price, and was done up like a kipper. I mean, in the Royal Bank, in the Bank of Scotland, I mean, the waste and the systematic abuse, I would say, of the system probably even appalled, you know, the people down in London. I mean, the basket case, it was Bank of Scotland, but you know, and it seems to me, I don't know, that's what I'm hoping for, that the bits of the jigsaw that I'm trying to piece together from the stuff, I'm dying to get a hold of this book, because I think it's going to give me some more pieces of a jigsaw to put it together. And it seems to me what you're giving me now, G, is, I mean, Gavin Masterton is just a small but person. Even Alex Salmon, you said, G, is small. So I mean, are we talking? What are we talking here in Scotland? I mean, who's bigger than this? Can you give us a hint on that? Who's bigger than Masterton? Who's bigger than Salmon in Scotland? Then who are we talking here?
What? Tommy, you gotta get the book, you know, because
don't leave it this way, G. Come on, tell me who
listen,
it is.
It's unexplainable. And Tommy, hear me out. It's unexplainable in words. Okay, if I started in on this, it would take me 2.5 hours, and you'd stop me an hour in and say, "Where the fuck are you leading me? I don't have enough breadcrumbs to find my way home, Graham." Honestly, it's an interconnected, tangled web, and Paul has charts and graphs in his book that link everybody together, and it's people that you may have heard of, there's people that you may not have heard of, but it's all linked together. And I mean, everything is connected. You know, people at Companies House, people at Parliament, people at the Royal Bank of Scotland, people at the SFA, people, I mean, it just everywhere. You know, it's it's mind-boggling. It literally is, but it shows exactly what you're talking about. You know, from the standpoint of, you know, you start borrowing these obscene amounts of money, you know, tens of millions of pounds, and in addition to that, you know, you have the egos that are involved with it, and you have the reputations that are at stake, and you have, you know, the benefits that are strewn about, and you have this interconnected collusion that is unbelievably, I mean, it's impossible to break. The very fact that Celtics still exist in the face of all this is truly a miracle. I mean, it's truly something undescribably special. You know, I mean, it's a testament to Fergus McCann. You know, see, this is the thing, that all of these principles that were involved, you know, the Angus Grosserts, the you know, the David Murrays, the Mastertons, the Alex Salmons, you know, they didn't have a pliable entity when the Bunnet came over from Canada. Fergus McCann doesn't give a shit, you know, what establishment you're part of. Fergus McCann doesn't give a shit where your kids went to school, where you went to school. He's not answerable to you on that. He's not looking for favors. He's not looking for handouts. He's not looking to get into, you know, the posh neighborhoods or the posh golf clubs or the posh parties. He doesn't give a shit about any of that. And that was the thing that was the biggest threat to all of them. You know, he came in, he didn't care. You know, and he shocked the system with that. And he, I mean, if it wasn't for him, by hook or by crook, with the emphasis on the latter, Celtic Football Club would have been put to the sword.
Yeah, but you see, I can wholly appreciate and can wholly understand and can completely see 100% now that Fergus McCann was the right man at the right time and did the 100% perfect job, and he came from left field, and they couldn't get a hold of him, and they couldn't, because he was distant, and he couldn't be got at, because, and then his attitude, and he rode them good and proper. And for that, every Celtic fan has got to salute Fergus McCann and say bravo and well done. But then in the same breath, before we even go on, it's not about what about today, but at the same breath, the problems that are at Celtic Park just now exist because of what Fergus brought in equal measures also, and that was bringing Celtic to a club, bringing people to Celtic as non-Celtic minded and being dispassionate about it and putting that first and foremost, and putting the business line and the bottom line and the money at the forefront, and that we're all consumers. And the most important thing is the fact that they're failing to stand up for us as a fan base and make that distinction for the hatred coming from Ibrox, and how they can't make a distinction from our songs and standing up for us, So at that side, Fergus did brilliant for saving us, but to what detriment? What club are we now? That's the way I look at it. But fair play to Fergus for what he did at that time. It did two major things. It saved us. It restored us to the power club that we are now. I have to give them that. And it helped kill the most rancid, bigoted club. So for all his faults, Fergus, but you join those two last things, he brought us back to being a semblance of what we were before, and he helped reduce them to rubble. So I've got to say, in fairness, Fergus McCann, what a brilliant job, but could have done better.
Well, yeah, I see what you're saying, Tommy, but I think it's a bit harsh to blame Fergus for the current predicament we're in just now. I mean, I think that Fergus was very honest, in what he was coming in and trying to do. He said he was going to rebuild the stadium in 5 years. He said that he was going to stop, the 10 in a row within 5 years. He said that, he was going to take a certain amount of money on his investment out after 5 years. And he wasn't going to be, one of these sort of dynasty owners. He is going to leave one way or the other after 5 years, and that Celtic was going to be a self-sustaining entity indefinitely, and that Celtic was never going to find itself in the predicament that he found it in. Now,
but what I'm saying is, but the two legacies are that he saved us and he helped kill them, but the other part was the legacy was that as a club that were a PLC, were money-driven, were consumer, customer-led, and we're not fan-led. So they're looking...
I know
go to consumer customer basis. He's took us at, and yes, we had to go that way compared to what we were, but we lost that ethos that we could have combined our ethos and our culture and our way of doing stuff, and went into the 21st century with a capitalist system, but doing it with fair wages for the players. I mean, if we're a club now that we can't pay in the economic condition fair wages to our people who work there, and our top executive gets $1 million, then we're a club that's lost the plot, and that was started by Fergus McCann. We lost our way. We can trace it back to that point and say, brilliant, we saved us, we helped kill them, but at what price? We're lost the ethos that working men or poor people in the East End can't go to see the team that they love. Young players, young fans can't go to see the team because even though it might be £17 or even £5, that's still pricing people out the game,
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying, and I think it's a bit harsh that Fergus is going to get blamed for. Listen, I don't know enough about the specifics of what the club was like under Fergus, so I certainly can't exonerate him, but what I know of the club at this moment, we're 13, 14, well, almost 15 years removed from, the time when Fergus was here, and from the time when Dermot Desmond basically took control of this club. We can say it's a PLC all we want. The bottom line is Peter Lawwell answers only to Dermot Desmond. It's not a coincidence that the Celtic Trust, who in my opinion have the best interest of the club at hand, will understand why it's so dangerous to have a PLC arrangement in charge of the club just now. I think it's indicative when they present 3 very reasonable resolutions to the AGM coming up on November 13th, and each one of them is knocked back for the most trivial of issues. And the board comes out and makes a recommendation that shareholders vote against those resolutions while voting for the resolutions that come from the board. And let's not kid ourselves. by board, I mean these are coming from Dermot